Check.
Alright, there we are. Hello everybody, welcome to today's stream. Hopefully you guys can hear me and see me and everything is working okay. Let me just make sure that I've adjusted a couple of settings. I got something a little bit different for you guys today. I'm not doing a one-shot like I normally do. Instead, I'm actually going to be doing some dungeon design. I'm going to be writing down new ideas for different rooms of my dungeon. I'm going to be rolling dice to determine, you know, is a room trapped? Are there monsters? I'm going to be rolling for like treasure and things like that. And I'm going to be figuring out what magical items I want to use for the dungeon itself. Obviously, I'm doing this with Shadowdark, but the idea is, relatively speaking, it's probably going to be a universal dungeon. Some of the magic items might need adjusting if you're going to use it for, you know, 5e, DCC, OSE, etc. But the good thing about these D20 systems is a lot of this shit works, you know. Let's just make sure that we're happy with the stream settings. Headset microphone. So there is an off sync with my mic. Is that better? Yeah, that looks a little bit better. Okay. He hath made his presence known. Yeah, guys, thank you very much for joining. I do appreciate it. It's good to have you guys here. Haven't made a video in like a week. Not very good. I had some good ideas for last week, but I got really distracted with other things that I've been working on. I've been obviously working on this dungeon. I've been working on a couple of things that I want to release, and also I've been painting. This dungeon seems pretty good, actually. Its music, yeah, it's pretty sweet. Anyway, so let me switch us to the right screen, and let me just make sure that my camera is on, which I think is this one. Yeah, here we are. Cool. So I'm using Dungeon Scroll. It's an app that you can use online. It's completely free. You can get the paid version, but I don't use the paid version, and I make great dungeons. I don't really know what the paid version really gives. Probably gives more assets or something. I don't know. Maybe bigger map sizes and it's like more options or something. But you don't really need it. You don't really need to spend money on this. There's a lot of things you can spend money on in this hobby, but yeah, I try to invest my money more accurately on things that matter. Like, I buy minis usually, and I've got a couple of what are they called, terrain crates. You guys know what I'm talking about? Those like little boxes. It's got those little pieces of terrain. You can buy different bundles. So I've got like the Dungeon Essentials one, and I got like debris or something like that. So yeah, it's pretty good. Does this dungeon of yours have any story to it? Yeah, and I'm gonna kind of talk you guys through what the main idea of this dungeon is, and hopefully it sells the idea to you guys, because the idea is I'm actually making this to be a product. I want to release it to the public. I want to see people actually running this, and yeah, you know, I want it to be an official thing, really, that people can use. Honestly, you should set up things the players can know about the next room ahead of time. What do you mean? I also love Dungeon Scroll. I use it for my games. Yeah. Like if players roll a good wisdom check, they learn like a smell or a sound that comes from the next place to help them prepare. I think it really depends. I don't think you need to telegraph every single room and every single scenario and situation. It's incredibly unnecessary, and I think it just wastes time, especially when the threat isn't that big of a deal. But I think you're right that, like, if it is a major threat that the party might be coming up against, or, for example, a very dangerous trap that could kill a player character, I feel like there's a lot of value in telegraphing that. Just because you telegraph something doesn't mean that you give it away, and also it doesn't mean that you remove the obstacle. You just make sure that the players know what the obstacle is, right? So, yeah. I'm not going to telegraph every single thing, and I don't really think people who would buy this would want that either, because it just sounds incredibly unnecessary. So guys, this dungeon is it's a former dwarven stronghold. And I don't know how long ago exactly. I'm thinking like a century ago, maybe half a century to keep it kind of fresh. Half a century ago, it fell. And it fell to greenskins, predominantly orcs. And many of the dwarfs who were there were captured and killed, and the ones who escaped fled to other dwarven strongholds in the area. And this place has become almost infamous, a place of... I mean, it's almost like Moria, right, in Lord of the Rings. It's a place that brings the dwarves great shame. It's a place where the dwarves lost a huge strategic location, and more importantly, guys, they lost a lot of wealth. They lost a lot of value. They lost a lot of magic. And the whole point of this is it's going to be kind of like a mega dungeon. I'm thinking multiple floors. I don't know how many floors currently, but I'm thinking like 2 or 3. Maybe 3. I think 3 is always the magic number when it comes to stuff in the hobby, just in general, really. I like the rule of 3, the power of 3. But the idea is that this place is crawling with greenskins, it's crawling with subterranean monsters, we're talking cave creepers, we're talking things like ropers, we're talking stingbats, better known as sturge. Anything that you could really expect to be, I guess, in the Underdark could be here, maybe? I don't think I want Drow here. I think Drow is its own thing. I think Drow should be, like, where the Drow should be. But I am definitely thinking on a lower floor of having, like, dark dwarfs. You know, like the subterranean evil dwarfs. The Duragar, right? That's what they're called. I think that'd be really good. How do you import the maps to Roll20? You just, on the left side of the screen, there's a button called Export, and you just choose PNG off. You type the file name in, and yeah, you just export it. You just export it, it saves the file, and then you just upload it to the exact specifications of what it states. So right here, it says 78 by 82, which is huge, by the way. You know, obviously, like, it's not actually close to the edges. But yeah, you know, I just export it. It's pretty straightforward. So anyway, that's kind of the plot. And I feel like in Shadowdark, dwarves aren't really used. They're probably the weakest out of the class options in terms of, like, giving players anything of value. And I think the reason why people... I mean, dwarves are actually really good. I mean, being able to roll with advantage on health and gaining bonus health as well is really, really good, especially for low-level characters, you know, survivability in that. But the problem is it's very passive, and you're not actually really gaining anything that you can play with in sessions. Humans get additional talent. Halflings or gnomes, whatever they are, get to turn invisible. Half-orcs do extra damage, I'm pretty sure, right? So my point is that, like, the different races, they all kind of get something that's a bit more, you know, useful in the day-to-day delving that they will be doing. So I kind of just want to make dwarves a bit more useful. I think I have ideas for, like, optional rules for dwarfs and halflings in the book. I'm thinking of like having some like new backgrounds and stuff, but I don't really want to sit and talk about that today. I think that's stuff that I'm going to work on and just kind of surprise people with in a few weeks or a few months. The idea is I've been playtesting this and it's been really fun, but I need to kind of work on it today. So let me get up all my documentation that I'm going to need. This is a document that I've been using for Galdrheim, and I really want to kind of work on it today. We're going to split everything into 2 screens, and I'm going to zoom in on this one so you guys can see a little bit better of what I'm doing. So I haven't really like written anything about the first room, but I have definitely explained a lot to people when they start up. I talk about the statues and who they are. I've talked about how there's loads of bones in the center of the room. So I actually do want to write that down and have that kind of something that other people can use as well, because I feel like I know this dungeon far better than I'm writing. Like, and I've always been like that. I kind of improvise a lot. I kind of come up with things on the spot that are really kind of unique and interesting, and I don't actually write down half of the stuff I come up with, and it's not amazing, but let's get started. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pillars from floor to ceiling. Many of them covered in blood, in dried blood, and scarred from old battles. Very cool. 2 great statues depicting the founders of the stronghold, Leaf and Ketil. There we go. Yeah, so and that's one thing I do for my adventures is I use bullet points. I usually color coordinate them to represent different things. So kind of basic information I just kind of leave as grey. Treasure I have a certain color, and I have like other things different colors too. And the idea is that it kind of allows dungeon masters to kind of read what they actually need to read, what they want to read, and not read everything. If that makes sense. I know it's funny that, like, you know, I've been DMing for like over a decade now, and a lot of DMs love reading, just reading books in general. They're quite articulate and all that. But if I'm being honest, guys, I struggle to read. I struggle. I'm good at reading. I just don't really enjoy. I can't sit still for longer than like a minute, sitting in one place and reading like pages of a book. I just don't find that very interesting. So when I run adventures, I don't want to have to read like loads of paragraphs to really figure out what's going on in one room. You know, I want things to be short. I want things to be sweet. I want to be able to get a gist, an idea of what I'm running quickly. So, mounds of skeletal remains from the I'm trying to think of how to skeletal remains in the center of the room. Like, the big thing is I want the players to, when they first come into this place, I want them to realize this place is no joke. Like, what's happened here is like Geneva Convention war crimes. The orcs have murdered, butchered the dwarves, and there are dwarven skeletons just littering this room. Think like Moria when they go into that chamber and there's like the dwarven skeletons laying there. Like, and just the amount of like emotion that conveys across. I don't want it to be like crazy. I don't want them to be like defiled and hanging from the ceiling and shit like that. But like having mounds of skeletal, like dwarvish and goblinoid skeletal remains in center of room. Players can attempt to search the rubble to find up. I like the idea of them being able to have like a certain amount of chances to find treasure, and the way they do that in Shadowdark is you roll like a d6, and if you roll a 4, 5, or a 6, or a 1, 2, or 3, depending on how your DM does it, you got like a 50% chance of finding treasure every time you search like rubble or a sack, or just like a random location where there isn't really anything of considerable value, right? I think I'm gonna put like, I'm gonna have this be on another line, and I'm gonna put potential treasure, 1d4 chances to find treasure. Players roll a 1d6 on a 4, 5, or 6. They find a random piece of treasure. Roll on an appropriate treasure chart. Okay, so obviously, like, if you play 5e, you're probably thinking, well, what would I do, right? Well, the Dungeon Master's Guide has treasure charts, and you can just choose one of the tables on there and let your player roll a 100, D100, right? And tables A and B are very basic, like it's like potions mainly in the scrolls, and unless you roll like a 90 to 100, you're not really getting anything special. But that's still quite fun, and your players could find a couple of potions early, they could find a couple of just items in general, and that's a nice way of kind of kickstarting the adventure. So what about a dwarven bathhouse that was turned to a brewery by the orcs? I actually really like that idea. That's, yeah, the idea that like the alcohol was fermenting in the actual bath itself, like the pool, and it's like getting all like gross and gangrenous, and yeah, it's like the alcohol is probably not consumable by anybody but a dwarf or an orc, you know. Anyway, so potential treasure. I think that's good. Yeah, so nothing else than that. There's no like random encounters or any like encounter in here. I like it to be a bit open. So we're just gonna leave it at like that. So I usually leave like passive in front of things that like the players just find out, right? This is just information the players find out. And then you have potential treasure, and then, you know, potentially there are things that players could roll to determine other things. Like maybe a player says, well, you know, what were Leaf and Kettle known for, right? Well, roll me an intelligence check. You roll high. Maybe I'll include some information about the founders in the book. DMs can use that, or they could just improvise and just shoot from the hip and say, you know, Leaf was a legendary warrior, Kettle was an explorer. You know, it's really not difficult to improvise if you're feeling confident with yourself. I will say, this room is really fun for random encounters. I've had, like, so many random encounters take place in here when the players have, like, gone into one section, then they've double backed and gone to another one, and when they're doubling back to go back through here, they have a random encounter. They've got to fight orcs, they've got to fight goblins, they've got to fight something, right? And it's really fun because they end up, like, using the pillars, they use a statue, they're, you know, I like the idea of actually filling this room with rubble. So I kind of want to draw, like, just something here. And yeah, I think I'm going to do that. I just don't want it to look like shit. So let's shrink the radius down a little bit. Let's make it rough. Turn off the snap. And yeah, let's just like kind of draw some skeletal bundles. And there you go. We're going to change the color, make it like a white or a grey color for bones, right? But yeah, I just definitely I want the players to actually see the difficult terrain, harsh terrain. Obviously, like, this is just kind of a draft version. I'll probably go over it and tweak things and make things look better once it's actually kind of like in finished production. But we're not there yet. If I'm honest, I just kind of want to finish this first and have the full product available. My original version of this dungeon was a lot bigger. Like, it was much bigger dungeon. I've actually got rid of a lot of rooms because I kind of came to this realization: why would the Dwarven stronghold only be on one level, unless I like close to bedrock? Like, there's no reason for it just to be a horizontal dungeon. It should really be vertical, because they're dwarves. They dig, they tunnel, they burrow. I know it's very in line with how dwarves are seen historically and the canon of dwarves, but I think that's good. I think we should play on the we should really play on how dwarves are, you know. I will say these dwarves, the ones that I use in this setting, they are Norse. They are Viking dwarves, so they have like Scandinavian names. And that's something that I do want to reiterate in the book. If Dungeon Masters want to change their culture, change their faith, whatever, do it, right? It's not going to really be a problem. But in my opinion, dwarfs are the best when they're either Scottish or Norse. But I think Scottish dwarves are really overdone. And also the Scottish names, unless you're going to actually use the clan system of like MacDonald and stuff like that, I don't think it's that interesting. So, and you're probably not. You're probably going to use things like Battle Hammer and Iron Fist and stuff like that. So, I don't see why Scottish names would be a good idea. Norse orcs? See, I don't really put a lot of stock in giving orcs human-sounding names. I like the idea of them having orcish names because I really dislike the idea of orcs being seen as like human in any way. They're not. And I hate how over the last like 20 years orcs have just become more and more like big muscly green humans. They're not monsters anymore. Like, I play World of Warcraft. I play it currently, and I have a lot of fun playing it, but I don't particularly enjoy how orcs are portrayed. They're not innocent. They're not kind creatures, and I don't think they're worthy of respect, personally. Grimok. Oh, you mean like their culture? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, potentially. I mean, obviously the Vikings were known for raiding, but mainly like naval travel. Orc like pirates does sound pretty cool, and like orc ships. That could be quite fun for a setting, but there we go. I'm just gonna leave it like that. I'm quite happy with that, and I think I'll even put like bones on here. I usually like it being in capitals. Change the size. There are other good cultures that you can use, rather than like the Vikings. My first thought goes to like the Huns, You know, as an example. Fomorians. Aren't Fomorians in like 5e, like giant orc, cyclops things? I don't know. They've really changed over the editions, haven't they? Yeah, 5e does a lot of things dirty, I'm not gonna lie. One of the cool things I've kind of come up with for this game, and I'm not really sure whether it's going to make Final Draft or not, is that there basically are locations of orc strength in Galdrheim. Like orc meeting points, rally points, locations where their children are, their families are, and where a lot of their treasure is. Okay? And I came up with this idea of a barricade system. At the start of every run, the orcs have access to X amount of barricades, and the Dungeon Master can choose where these barricades are located. And the barricades are 5 by 10, so it's a rectangle, and they can use it to block passageways, corridors, and they can put as many of them up as they want, as many as they have access to, and they can also leave some in reserve. And I've used it for previous runs, and my players actually really enjoyed it. They liked the fact that they had to like destroy barricades, they had to like push them out of the way, they had to climb over them. They could use the barricades against the orcs if the orcs were out of position. And I don't know, it's an interesting thing. I also had like the orcs put down what's it called? Caltrops. They had caltrops that they put down that would damage the player characters if they walked over them, and it just I don't know, it's worked out. Sounds a lot like orcs. Yeah, I like the idea that the orcs were able to were defensible, that they weren't completely stupid, and they understood. Yeah, we blocked this passageway, we can't get hurt. I mean, that's a very simple thought, isn't it? If I block this passageway, enemies can't get in. So, sounds a lot. Knockoff Moria? Fuck off. It's not. I'll tell you this, it's, as it stands, it's not a mine. So, I've focused it to be more of like a strategic location, like a protecting a trade route or something like that, rather than it being more of like a mine or something like that. So yeah, I mean, let's actually have a look at what we've done for this. Because, okay, so the first section, these are the random encounters that I've got available. If you're watching the stream, guys, you're going to pick up on a lot of the things that I do. And one of the things I do is I never make random encounters and decide how many monsters I'm going to have beforehand, unless the monster is really, really powerful, right? Like a monster that can just annihilate a group. Like the Gelatinous Cube can, okay? Because this is a low-level players. What I do is I roll dice to determine how many monsters there's going to be. So, for example, we've got Orc Scavengers, Orc Scouts, and I just roll a dice, or 2 dice in the case of the Scavengers, to determine how many Orcs are going to be a part of that group. And that creates for a variety of encounters. I could have an encounter where there's only 2 Orcs. I roll 1 on each of the D4s. I could also have an encounter where there's 8 of them, right? But depending on what I roll, it will really change how the encounter is going to be played out. And obviously I'm still going to be rolling for reactions. Very important that you always roll for reactions. It makes things a lot more interesting. In my 5e game, I even roll for reactions in that too. The players were in the mountain, Mount Blanc. It's like a dormant volcano. And they came across 5 bugbears who were suspicious of them. They managed to talk to them, and they gave the party gave them like a really expensive golden necklace, And they decided to actually, share information with the players, tell them about what's going on in the area, tell them about where Knoll parties are and where the Dwarven ruins are located in the area. And if I hadn't used a reaction chart, if I hadn't used these other charts, it would have been likely, the bugbears see you and they attack. And that's just kind of boring. Instead, it was role play. It could have led to combat. It almost did. But it became something far more interesting, and the players had agency over what could happen, which I just find a lot more fun. That's how you do that, okay. Moray was a strategic location too. Yeah, okay. So it's supposed to be like a stronghold, right? It's supposed to be like a fort or the dwarven version of a castle. That's kind of the idea. Lots of people living here. Haven't really decided if there's going to be like a mining floor. There could be, because I'd be able to use a lot of like subterranean monsters, and that would be quite fun. I could use like insect creatures, like subterranean insects, and monstrosities like the Umberhulk, cave crawlers. One second, I'm going to close my door because my dogs are being a bit noisy. Cool. The big thing is about the first floor is there's a troll, and trolls are pretty powerful. They're in Shadowdark. I mean, in 5e they're pretty powerful too. They're like CR5, I'm pretty sure, right? And they can regenerate unless you use fire or is it acid? I think it's acid, right? And Shadowdark trolls are probably even more powerful. They gain HP every round. They're just very difficult to fight against, and they're able to do quite a lot. So we got a troll on this floor. He's kind of only in certain sections, but I'm thinking about like kind of changing that and having there just be one big random encounter chart for this floor. Okay. Alright, let's look at 2A. So this is supposed to be the visitor's point. This is where if you're a human or an outsider, you would be brought here. This is where you would stay. These smaller rooms here are supposed to be bedrooms that people can sleep in. These ones down here are kind of like supposed to be specialized rooms for more important figures. And then this is a tavern, and this is a kitchen. The idea is, guys, I kind of want to have things be relatively realistic. I know it's not going to be necessarily perfect, but I want to give this feel like this place is actually was once a genuine location of dwarven strength. So I definitely want to have this stuff here. I personally like the Elder Scrolls orcs. I think they're one of the few decently done non-Tolkien orcs. If I'm being honest, guys, I just like the OSR, the old school orcs, which are like pigmen. I painted a bunch of pigmen recently. They're downstairs currently. I should really bring them up and show you guys, but they're just pig-faced orcs. And I have them be very savage. I have them eat humans, and dwarfs, and other creatures, and they even eat their own kind as well. I just have them be very savage. And it's not about them being irredeemably evil or not. It's just, it's difficult if you're outside of their culture to be able to relate to them because of how alien their culture is. And that's one thing that I feel like is really lost in a lot of games now, is that like so many so many of the different races that you can play, their cultures feel like a version of like it feels like a human culture, right? The elves feel quite human, the dwarfs do as well, the halflings and gnomes. There's nothing that really makes you feel like they're different, like they're from a different world, that they're, you know, I don't know. That's just the way I see it. It's the same way, like, if you've watched Avatar, the James Cameron movie, right? Uh, the the people, the Na'vi, whatever the fuck they're called, they're really unique. Like the way that the things that they believe in, the way that they connect with the earth. It's just very unique stuff. And even with the elves in my campaigns, I like the elves to be alien. I like them to have views that humans would be very confused at. And I want human people, like the players, to think it's kind of weird, right? So then if they play characters, they can kind of represent that. Uh, the orcs are just prone to being controlled, not inherently violent, although they are brutal when living out in the wild because the wilds are brutal. Yeah. Ilya, you're kind of annoying me, man. If I wanna ramble, let me ramble, bro. I'm using Dungeon Scroll, man. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks for saying Dungeon Scroll. Statue of a dwarven king shaking hands with a human king. Yeah, I really like that. I think there needs to be like something on the walls, like murals or something like that. The flagstone floor is covered with skeletal remains and other bones. Um, Walls are coated with dried blood. I don't really think the walls need to be like coated. But the walls are painted in bright colors. Depict it. Oh, do I have to do it the American way? I guess I should, because it's probably going to be mainly to American audiences. We'll see. I might switch it to the British spelling. It's really weird that we have different spellings. Depicting uh peace between dwarfs, men, and elves. I guess. Sure, fine, great. I don't really know any D&D settings where dwarfs and elves like hate each other. I mean, obviously there are people running like homebrew worlds where that might be the case, but you can always say that this was a long time ago. And the dwarfs here were friends with the elves. Blah blah blah. I don't know. Um, Lots of small private rooms for visitors to sleep in. Each room has a 1 in 6 chance to have treasure. Success is on a 6, which I think is cool. So the players can kind of like clear the rooms. There's a 3 in 6 chance that room 3A or 3B has a group of 1d6 orcs inside. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I want to have too many like random dice rolls to determine if things are present. So I think what we're going to do is we're actually going to change this, and we're just going to say that there are orcs in one of the rooms. We're going to have it be a telegraphed encounter, and we'll come up with some way of actually making sense of it. Let's just say 4 orcs are located here. They are. What are you guys thinking? Why are they here? Why are they at Visitor's Point? Remember, this place was taken over a long time ago. They are. You know what? I've got a good idea. They are outcasts from the Orcish tribe here, and stay here rather than with the rest of their kind. I don't like the word people. They're not people. Orcs aren't people. The way I see orcs and goblins and bugbears. I see them as monsters, and I think that's always going to be how I represent them in my games. Humans, dwarfs, elves, gnomes, halflings. You know, I don't even really like gnomes being human, you know, or seen as. I like them being like Bam Bam from the Flintstones, just like really high energy, ADHD. You know, just smashing people with you know, clubs and stuff. um. So yeah, 4 orcs are located here. They're outcasts from the orcish tribe, and stay here rather than with the rest of their own kind. You know, let's roll a couple of dice and kind of determine what treasure we're going to actually have here. I'm going to use a virtual dice roller for this just to keep it simple. I like the idea that there's a couple of items that players are going to be able to find here. I don't see why not, right? We haven't really had a lot of treasure so far, so an 8 and a 77. Right. Let's have a look. So treasure. So I rolled a rusty lantern with shattered glass, 1 GP, and what was the other ice? It was a 77. And a radiant polished pearl, 40 GP. I don't know if I like that. Why is there a pearl in this room? Maybe there's like some wall art or a mural where there's like a pearl fixed into it or something. Or maybe like a statue or I might think about that a little bit. By the way, the music stopped. Why did the music stop?
Welcome to AFK Journey.
What's this? Cool. Is the lantern still usable? I don't see why it wouldn't be. I mean, the glass is shattered, so I feel like it... The whole idea is like a lantern... There are sometimes instances where like a lantern can go... Like a torch can go out, but a lantern can't, right? Like, for example, like a strong wind comes through. If you've got a lantern, it's likely that the flame is going to be fine. But with a torch, it might go out. I think with a rusty lantern with shattered glass, it's basically a torch in terms of, you know, whether it can go out or not. But I'll allow it to be as effective as a lantern. So I don't see why not. Alrighty, so let's get rid of that. All orcs with spears and shields are located here. They're outcasts from the orcish tribe and stay here rather than with their own kind. If they see... They are busy talking amongst themselves, but will hear the party if they are not trying to be quiet. Yeah, I like the idea that this is an encounter where the players could surprise the orcs and take them out relatively quickly. I find like in a lot of games, players aren't really wanting to sneak around or stealth, and that's fair enough. But I genuinely detest seeing groups brute force everything. Like, they go into a room and they're like, I don't want to stealth, or I don't want to sneak around because I'm a hero and heroes aren't afraid of anything. It's like, dude, you're a level 1 fucking paladin. You shouldn't be thinking that you can just take on whatever's in these rooms, like, without any conscious thought. It's silly, man. Anyway, so that's that. We don't really need to add much to that. We got Visitor's Hearth. Okay, so this actually needs to be deleted. This is from the previous version, I'm pretty sure. Cool. So we got the Tavern Hall. Large stone tables from the olden days still remain in this long hall. Some of them are cracked, smashed, or crumbling. The remains of 3 dwarfs are found in the room. How do I say that very simply? Like, civilians, dwarvish civilians are found in the room. Plates and cutlery can be found throughout. We don't need to do the room again. I think that's too many of the rooms. If a player tries to search, they will find a silver spoon worth 5 gold pieces. Yeah, we'll leave it like that. I think that's simple. Still in relatively good condition. Yeah, let's add a little bit more to this. Working stove. No firewood. That's cool, that's cool. So they could use it for heat, they could use it to, I don't know, light torches, they could start a fire. There's stuff that they could do from this room if they wanted to. Door to the north is broken off of its hinges, leaving it slightly ajar. Very cool. Do we want to have anything like available in the kitchen? I like the idea. Maybe there's like knives in here. Kitchen utensils can be found in here. Specifically, knives, spoons, a rolling pin, pan, a frying pan. Yeah, just stuff like that. Why not? Door is ajar. Yep. That means it's slightly open. Perhaps a chance for certain herbs. Herbs? What do you mean? What's the next room? Is the next room the shrine? Yeah, it's a bit of a jump, isn't it, from that room to the shrine, but next room is the Shrine of Moradin. And I'm kind of using the the Forgotten Realms gods. I do like them. And I think a lot of people know of them because some of them are in 5e, some of them are in the systems that they play. So, walls are engraved with the faith of the dwarves, but has been defaced by the orcs, and false idols have been placed upon the altar. Skulls, dried organs, etc. 2 statues. Two statues depict heroes from the dwarvish culture. Hmm. Just spices, possibly rare ones. That's not a bad idea. Yeah, that's not a bad idea at all. If a player searches this room, they will find rare spices. Spices worth. Alright, and you know what? I'll roll a D100. I'll have a look at the tier 1 treasure chart. And I will use whatever value I roll as what this is. I rolled an 83. That's really high. 60 gold pieces. Wow. These spices take up 2 gear slots total. There we go. That's pretty cool. And that creates a bit of creativity. Like if a player wants to be a cook or wants to try to like carouse after the adventure, they could use the dwarvish spices as a part of their carousing. Maybe I'd give them advantage on carousing rolls because they've come up this unique way to use the spices to make food, and they've made like maybe like spiced rum or something, you know, I don't know. I like that kind of creativity. I like rewarding stuff like that. Ooh. Okay, so I'm actually going to be using a book called Tricks, Empty Rooms, and Basic Trap Design. It's either that or, you know what, I could try the Shadowdark dungeon creating book, but I just don't know if I like it very much. It seems like it's very much for, like, swamp campaigns and stuff like that. Okay, I'm actually going to roll to see what this is. What's the dice? It is a D12. Do we have treasure in here? What should we have? 1. I roll a 1. A 1 is an empty room. Okay, so we will keep it empty. But I do like the idea that maybe we like lock some of these doors. Not have all the doors unlocked. Keep it a bit finicky. Yeah, let's have the northern door unlocked. It's already locked even. The northern doors are locked. But not trapped. I don't think we'll go with a trap. The orc leader has the key around their neck. Nice. Nice and simple. Removing the false idols from the altar gives the player involved a luck point. Gives them a luck point. Yeah, very nice. And obviously in Shadowdark, if you already have a luck point and you get another one, you can actually gift that luck point to a different player. It's really cool. So you can kind of like hand it out and reward other players for your own creativity. I really like that. We'll go with stone doors. Keep it simple. zoom in a little bit. So we got quite a bit here. You know, obviously the players can walk through here. They can fight orcs in this section. You know, we could have random encounters taking place here. You know, orcs could come bursting out from the tavern. They could be coming in from here. They could be coming in from here. They could be like patrolling or something. They could be orcs in these rooms, or goblins, or there could be a cave creeper stuck to the ceiling. The idea is we have obviously these various random encounters, and we can kind of weave them into the story, so every single run is unique. Every single run is different, because you never know what's actually gonna be rolled, what's actually gonna pop out of this place and create conflict. Alright, I'm gonna roll some more dice now, and we're just gonna figure out if any of these other rooms have anything really going on or not. So actually, I want to roll for the kitchen really quickly. Alright, I roll a 12, which means I've got to roll 2 and combine them. So let's do that. Alright, so 3 is an empty room, 11 is roll 2 and combine. Fuck's sake. I'm just going to re-roll one of the d12s and see if we... and I roll another 12. Fuck's sake, man, this sucks. This book sucks. Alright, never mind. You know what? We're not even going to bother with this. This is annoying me already. What is 7? What is 7 on here? Right, so 6A is the miner's meeting chamber. The door to the north of this room leads down... Okay, we got rid of that door, so we don't need to include that. Dwarves come to this room for their lunch break. Some mining equipment hangs from the walls. The brutalized skeletons of dwarves litter this room. I think this is from the previous version of the dungeon, because originally there was located here, there was like a way down into the mines, and I decided to kind of scrap that because I didn't really like that idea anymore. So I think I need to come up with new purposes for these 2 rooms. I don't think it is a miner's meeting chamber anymore, and I don't think this is the foreman's office either. So I kind of need to scrap these and come up with some new rooms that would make sense. And considering that there's lots of what assumedly are here, like, are bedrooms. Yeah, literally just fucking, like, rooms that people can live in, like living chambers. I need to come up with some use for this. Maybe like a shop or something. Maybe like a general store. It would obviously be very small, but we could combine them. You know? Shitter. Right. I mean, obviously they do need places to go to the bath, like to the toilet. So having a place to do that is probably a good shout. Maybe that could be room 7. Near the well. Okay, so I'm using the this book here. It's pretty good. It's got lots of like options for different rooms. And I'm just kind of looking through to see if there's anything that I kind of want to use. Is there anything like that makes a bit more sense for a dungeon? Doesn't look like it, okay. Right, let's just have a look and pick something. Arena, banquet, combat pit, den, game room, harem. Nice. You know what it could be? It could be like the bathhouse, right? That we were talking about earlier. Yeah. It might require me redesigning it a bit, making it look a little bit different, but yeah. Thinking maybe blocking up this part. Alright, so we can merge 6A and 6B and just have it be 6. And we have this be the bathhouse. Cool. Alright, so we'll merge that together. So we won't call it the bathhouse, we'll call it like the brewery. Orc Brewery. Once used as a bathhouse by the dwarves, it has been converted into a brewery, an open top brewery. Where the orcs create their alcohol by dumping large amounts of fermented, well, I guess just rotting fruit into the pool itself with various other ingredients. The smell is very strong. I'm wondering if there should be some sort of like boon if you drink it. Have you heard of the White Box by the Basic Expert? It's a clone of OD&D plus chainmail. The idea is if I was in 1974 and all I had was 3 little brown books plus chainmail, what game would this be? Yeah, I bet it is. I bet it is heroic. Like, I think a lot of people who play like 5e and Pathfinder, they have this perception that like the games that they're playing are the most heroic, but actually there's nothing heroic about stomping a bunch of monsters when you're playing an OP character, having a bunch of safety nets. Like, you can't really call yourself this great hero or adventurer when you're always given advantage over the monsters that you fight. You know, I think true heroism is being the underdog, really, and coming out on top. You know, all the great stories, it talks about the underdog defeating the great rival, the great villain, the great monster. Not, oh yeah, the 6 adventurers go and one-shot the fucking Lich because they've got epic weapons and 6 attacks and a spell that completely stops them from casting spells. Oh yeah, counter spell, right? You know what I mean? That's why I like Shadowdark, is because I just feel like players can't bully monsters as much. I think they have to think more creatively, and if they do actually succeed, it's usually because they actually made good decisions, were smart, and probably rolled pretty good too. If characters drink from the pool, what should DC be? 15? Yeah. Con check or be poisoned. For how long? How long should it be? Until they next rest. If they succeed, they gain. What should they gain? Maybe like advantage on attack rolls, or advantage on maybe checks against being frightened. Yeah. Yeah, I'm keeping it a lot more open. They gain advantage on checks related to bravery and confidence. So I feel like that could be used for like charisma stuff too, rather than just being like frightened, which I think is very like situational and kind of boring. And I don't think players will be able to come up with unique ways of using that unless there is specifically an encounter just around the corner, or random encounters that have frightening monsters. So yeah, I like the idea that it can be about bravery and confidence, and players might come up with ways to use that. There might be a random encounter where the players talk to the monsters and say, you know, get out of here before we cut your heads off. And, you know, they can roll with advantage on their charisma check to try and intimidate the monsters. For the remainder of the run. Ooh. We don't need to call it 6A, we can just call it 6. We can get rid of these. 7. Yeah, I think this is going to be like a dwarven rest room. I'm just deciding how big I want it to be. Do you think the dwarves have communal toilets? Probably a bit inappropriate, isn't it? I don't know. So I've written benches line the sides of the room, all fitted with flaps that, when lifted, reveal a hole that goes deep into the earth. The smell. I wouldn't say the smell is foul anymore because it's probably been a long time since it's been actively used. I don't think fecal matter, the smell of fecal matter, stays for that long, like decades and decades. I think it would eventually kind of stop smelling. The hole is not wide enough for creatures to climb into it. I think it's just very important to specify that. Some people are fucking morons, so... I don't know, actually. That could be really interesting. It reminds me a little bit of the movie Johnny English, where like they're trying to get into the mansion, and Johnny English is like Rowan Atkinson and like Mr. Bean, and he crawls up, he like climbs up the pipes as all the villains are taking a shit, and they all flush, and the shit just flies down and just washes over him. And I don't think anything like that would happen, but there is an interesting thought about like the players climbing down the pipes to get to the lower floor, and maybe going from the lower floor back up to the upper floor by using the pipes rather than like going up the stairs. That reminds me a little bit of The Matrix, the first Matrix movie, where like they're in the building and they're trying to go up the chimney. They're climbing up like the chimney from floor to floor. Is it the chimney or is it like the inside of the walls? I don't know. They're just like, they're climbing up the walls and they're like fix themselves and they're just kind of moving up and trying to remain hidden. I just think that's kind of cool. The hole is narrow, but creatures can squeeze down it. The hole leads to the lower floor. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking, Rex, is that they have no idea what it's used for. They probably just think it's used for like dumping things. Like dumping like bones and things that they don't want anymore. But the orcs are mainly located in this area. This is their rally point. This is where their leader is. This is where their children are. This is where their dwarvish slaves are located too. Player characters who don't die outright, but are left in the dungeon by the rest of their parties, get brought here as well, which is something that I think is really cool. Or just player characters in general. If the party like leave a couple of players to dying on the floor, some of those characters might not actually die. They might just be taken as slaves. Cool. Okay, so 8. So we want to call this like residential, something to do with residential area. For right now, we're going to call it Western Residential because it's on the western side of the map. And I think this is genuinely something I do want to roll some dice for. I like the idea of just kind of leaving up to chance, kind of what this place is, or what's in this place. So let's roll a d20 and determine what it is. An 8. An 8 is empty. Okay, well that's great. But I do want some details. So I do want to roll for some details. I want to figure out kind of what's going on in here. It's not really a room. It's more of like an open space. But I just want to I want to come up with something that's like in here, like something that I can discuss or say about. Ways in which a room may be interesting. There's worthless items, worthless treasure, a substance or material that covers the floor, mud, ice, sand, broken glass, candy, maggots. Okay. Well, there's a well here. That's already quite interesting, so we'll make a note of that. There is a functioning well here, connected with an aquifer on the lower floor. If a creature jumps into the well, they must succeed a DC. Let's go with the lowest DC. DC 9. Oh my god! I don't know if I should do this, but I feel like it makes sense. I like the idea that it's a big drop. This from this well. Shadowdark is a bit more realistic with like just damage that you would take, things actually hurting a lot more. So they must succeed a DC 9. What save should it be? Should it be Con? Should it be Strength? Should it be Dex? What save would be needed to like do a decent like splash, like a decent dive into water? We thinking maybe Dex? I don't think I'm going to do instant death mechanics here. But I am thinking it'll be like damage. And I'm thinking like 2d6. Let me roll to see how deep the water is. Well, I don't want to just determine how deep it is yet. Because I want to think about which floor this water source is going to be on. Because I like the idea that on one of the lower floors there's actually going to be a part of the map that is just going to be a big cave full of water. Yeah? And there might be a passageway into it that people on the lower floor can like fish in, or they can, I don't know, go check out things inside. Do you ever worry about the hours going into prep? Not really. I don't really spend a lot of time prepping anymore. What I'm doing here, this is supposed to end up being a book. So I'm actually trying to make a product right now. But when I actually run my own games, I don't do a lot of prep. I do a lot of improv in my games. The main thing that I create now, if you've watched my latest video, is I create situations. You know, that's kind of the main focus. So, like, rather than, like, creating a play-by-play of how the story is going to unfold, I just kind of design, well, these are the bandits. Here's their names. This is what weapons and armor they use, their stats and shit. This is how many bandits the bandit captain has. And this is the map. This is their location. Right? I spend more time kind of designing the actual things in the adventure than how the adventure is actually going to be played out. Does that make sense? So I spend more time working on designing the dungeon than I do on how my players are actually going to take on the dungeon. Because I think that your players should complete the dungeon in whatever way makes sense to them. I've had groups that have done shit that I completely didn't expect. Like, they disguise themselves as orcs. They paint them, like, they genuinely, like, get herbs that are green, and they use it. They, like, rub up on their skin. They get, like, green dye or whatever. They make themselves look like orcs. They wear orcish armor, and they try to sneak in. And they get really far. And they bypass a shit ton of encounters and areas. And in the past, I felt really bad about that, you know, because I've put all this effort into these different sections, and there was going to be major plot points here. I don't fucking do that anymore, you know. Like, if the players don't find a plot point here, they might find it later on. I'll improvise it, you know. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people don't actually understand what a sandbox is. Like, I've got friends who say, "Oh, I love playing sandboxes. I love running sandboxes," but then these same friends don't actually run sandboxes. They what they do is they ask you what you want to do, and they'll do what you want, but they will prepare what you want, and they will make it into a railroad. They will make what you want into a railroad for you to follow. That's not technically a sandbox. A sandbox is me in the halfway through the session saying, "Actually, DM, we want to do this," and the DM saying, "Cool, let's see how it goes." And, you know, the DM just kind of going with the flow and letting the players do things the way they want and going in the direction they want to go without having to, I don't know, do exactly what the DM wants. I've had DMs who've literally pushed me in a certain direction because, like, they've prepared certain content and they don't want that content to be wasted, I guess. There still needs to be interesting and original things first for them to discover. I'm not moaning, I enjoy it, but it does take ages. So what I'm working on a video right now, Neil. It's going to be called Adventure Zones, and I don't really know if it's a term that's really used by a lot of people. But I'm working more now on creating zones of adventure and locations of adventure that I can drag and drop anywhere in my world, anytime, based on the actions of my players. If my players are going along a road and they roll that there's an abandoned ruin, I can pick up one of these adventure scenarios that I made in a couple of hours, and I can just drop it in and say, "You found the ancient temple of Nazukakara," or something, right? Yeah, modular locations. And I know there are people who are making modular location adventures that people can, like, pick up and buy from Drive-Thru-RPG and shit. You don't see a lot of them that are very popular. You don't see a lot of them that are very well known. But this shit is literally fucking tight, right? Because there are times, guys, I'm sure for all of you, where you're really in the mood to actually do some designing, to do some dungeon building and stuff, right? And you put together a dungeon in a couple of hours and you think, that's pretty cool. But then you end up not using it because the players never go to the location where it is, right? It happens. Or they do go to it and you tell them about it and they're like, "Nah, we're going to keep going to town." And you're like, "Ah, okay." Well, I like the idea of just being able to drop these locations in and draw my players towards them, rather than telling them what it is straight away and not being able to reuse it. What I could say is, you know, the party come across this statue of a legendary king with his sword raised, and on the inscription it speaks about a magical sword that has been lost to time, and here lies the ancient tomb of this king. But the players don't know where the tomb is because all they see is the statue. And that immediately makes them think, holy shit, like, what have we found? Where's the entrance? Let's start looking around, right? And I can drop that anywhere. I can drop that anywhere if the session's getting a bit boring, if there's nothing going on, if I don't really have stuff thought out for the next area. You know, at the end of the day, just because I improv a lot doesn't mean that I don't like create tensions and situations that can be taking place in the next town over, in the next province, right? Maybe the Lord is dealing with rebels, right, or something like that. The party can join and fight for the Lord, fight for the rebels, blah blah blah. Yeah, maybe that's the way ahead. Yeah, it really is. Obviously, what I'm making now is supposed to be like a big dungeon that you can use for Shadowdark, so this isn't really relevant to what we're kind of talking about right now this second, but it's an idea that I've been doing recently, and it's been working really well. My players found an adventure location recently, and I actually rolled during the session of what was in it and what they had to deal with. And one of the things they had to deal with in this adventure location is extreme heat inside the dungeon due to volcanic activity, because they're on top of a volcano. They're on a dormant volcano right now. They're in a mountain, a lone mountain, a lonely mountain, right? And what's amazing is I wasn't too sure how the players were gonna like kind of deal with it. Part of me thought they might just leave, because I described it as being so hot that, you know, they could die down there, right? And I thought that maybe what they were going to do is they were going to get water, they were going to like get rags, and, you know, they were going to send one person down at a time to run through the rooms, grab treasure and run back or something. Or they were going to use like low tier spells to keep themselves cool. I wasn't too sure what they were going to do, but I thought maybe they'll do something. They'll cast Chill Touch on themselves, deal damage, but chill themselves temporarily. I don't know, right? What they decided to do, well, what the wizard decided to do, was cast Sleet Storm. Yeah? She cast 3rd level Sleet Storm inside the dungeon and completely cooled it. She let the spell last for an entire minute. And once the minute was over, I turned around to them and said, right guys, you've got 10 rounds to explore this place before it gets, you know, hot again. And it gets really dangerous again. So the players are rubbing their hands together, they're excited, and they've now started to delve in. They're exploring, they're finding treasure, they're picking doors, and there's a timer. There's a timer until they start taking damage, and I think it's going to be like 2d10 damage every round that they spend down there, when they're not actually using anything to keep themselves cool. So pretty good. I haven't decided yet whether that dungeon's actually got any monsters in it. I think if it does, it's going to be like fire beetles or something. Maybe like a fire elemental might be down there. Who knows? Or maybe like a stone, not a stone giant, like a stone construct, you know? That could be cool. Alright, so several sleeping chambers are located here. They are mostly trashed by the orcs, goblins. Each chamber has a 1 in 6 on a 6 to have tier 1 treasure inside. There's also a statue here too. On the northern side of this space, there is wide double periods. Yeah, true. You're right. In the northern side of this space, there is a large statue depicting... What should it be depicted? Obviously, this is a dwarvish dungeon. We've already got statues of the founders. We've got statues of heroes. We've got statues of a princess. One of the dwarvish princesses. A very beautiful princess. Very famous princess that was from the stronghold. I'm thinking like maybe a miner or an artisan here, perhaps, or a prospector. Yeah. So, I did have an original thought to have... I don't think it's this section. I think it's actually over here. This section over here. I think I want 15 to be like a spider's nest or like a giant centipede nest or something. I want it to be full of like webs and eggs. And I love the idea like traveling through this room. There's like a 1 in 6 or like a 3 in 6 chance every turn that like eggs can just burst from like, I don't know, the vibrations through the ground, through the sensations of the player characters moving through. I don't know. And obviously these spiders will be like swarms of baby spiders, baby giant spiders. So they'll be like the size of tarantulas. And you know, that could be a pretty cool encounter. Okay, this is where shit gets really, really sexy. So, room 9 is the trading square. It's the main dwarvish trade area in this hold. The idea, guys, is this hold isn't big, right? It's a minor dwarvish stronghold. If it was a major one, I don't think it'd be appropriate for an adventure. There'd just be too much going on. And I know there are people out there who've already released like huge cities for adventure, and I just don't really want to do something like that. I like the idea of this being a town or something similar, something that's just a little bit easier to actually to deal with. I really enjoyed this session. Thought in my adventure for next weekend. Good man, yeah. The main thing I want to do in my campaign right now is I want to come up with a couple of cool villains, one for each of my games, and I want to create these. I don't just want it to be a plot that the player characters are involved in. I want it to be a plot that the region is involved in. I want there to be a genuine change of the behavior of NPCs. I want there to be... I want the world to be living and breathing around this situation that's occurring. And I think the best way that I can do that is by having some sort of like powerful monster who's trying to like conquer them, or is, I don't know, trying to affect the NPCs in some way. Yeah. That's good, Rex. That's very good. So maybe if they roll a 9 or higher on a stealth check, maybe the eggs don't pop. I think we should definitely I think we should telegraph that. I think we should say, as the players approach that zone, some of the eggs nearby immediately pop. And try to, like, tell them that, like, they're moving too quickly. Or something. That could be quite cool. Otherwise, they're probably not going to figure that out, are they? What should it be depicting? I usually go with like a sun or a flower, but I just don't think that's very dwarvish. Mountain dwarfs aren't really about the sun, are they? So maybe could be a dragon. It could be quite cool. Whoa, I made this place fucking edgy. 4 thick pillars from floor to ceiling. Dirty, bloody. Dwarven skeletons hang from the walls. Yeah, I think we'll have that right at the top. Rally point or orc tribe. If attacked directly, most orcs will regroup here. I think it's good for the DMs to know where their orcs would flee to, where their goal would be to regroup at. So I think it's useful to actually know that and have things make sense. 2d6 orcs can always be found here. 1d6 orc warriors can always be found here alongside 2d6 non-combatant orc non-combatants. However you want to represent them is really up to the DM. They could be women, children, they can just be young males, or old males. Though to be honest, in an orc society there's no such thing as old males. Because, you know, orcs fight and die. Death is a part of their life. I like the idea that orc religion and their culture, they have a very positive way of seeing death. Because I think that just makes it quite interesting. Although, then again, I do also love the idea of orcs being very crafty and conniving and cowardly. So, I don't know. Well, I think that sounds more like goblins, isn't it, really? Yeah, I want a quick way of saying like all the different vulnerable groups. So I'm just going to put there are vulnerable orcs here who are not fit for combat. And they will likely flee or surrender if confronted. Very nice. Cool. Yeah, it's nice. The 10 is the Smithy. Used by the dwarves to create tools, but now used by the orcs to make simple weapons and repair equipment. 2 dwarven families have been kept alive as slaves and are forced to smith the orcs for long hours. A forge and anvil are located. Maybe there is a forge and anvil, yeah. Forge and anvil. Along with various tools that can be used to create and repair weapons and armor. There are additionally hay. Oh, maybe have it on a different line. Portions of the floor is covered with dirty straw, which the dwarfs sleep in. Is it R? R covered, okay. Two dwarven families. Should we actually kind of figure out how many there are? Roll like 2d6, maybe, for how many dwarfs we've got here. 6 dwarfs, okay. And we can actually come up with names for the families too. If we want. Emojis? That's not what I wanted. Alright, so we got obviously some different families. Okay. Right, so we'll have Knut, Gudrun, and let's go with a girl, Ingrid. We'll put their sex, MMF, and then on this we will we'll do the same. We'll have a few more. We'll have Sigrun, Astrid, and we'll have 2 girls. We'll have 2 girls in this family. And Freya. Nice. Kurt and Ingrid are married, and Gudrun is their son. They have been locked up here for at least a decade. Sigrun is the father of Astrid and Freya, and does his best to keep his daughters safe. Sigrun is a master smith and is I'm just trying to think of how I want to state this, but the idea is for this adventure, right, is that in Shadowdark, it's all about getting treasure, okay? But I like the idea that if, like, a party can actually rescue these dwarfs and bring them out of the dungeon, I feel like a DM should give them experience for that. I'd say a couple of experience points per dwarf. So there's a chance to get 12 experience points if you can get all of them out. And I think that's really interesting. Maybe even more for Sigrun. Sigrun could be worth 5 experience points being a Master Smith. Is highly valued by the orcs. Cool. I like that a lot. Sigrun has crafted a master weapon, a magical weapon, but has been keeping it hidden from the orcs. He will be willing to give it to someone worthy. Okay, it means come up with a magical weapon now. Huh. Been a while since I've actually had to create a magical weapon from scratch. Let's use a DM companion for this. I love this book. This book is so useful at coming up with stuff. Alrighty, so we'll go with weapon, basic properties. Feel like it needs to be a weapon that actually could be useful against, you know, monsters, greenskins. So let's put like placeholder name here. We'll come up with a name for it, and put a +1 bonus versus greenskins. Let's specifically say orcs. Let's say orcs. I think that's cool. Weapon is radiant, or is flawless. In craft... Ooh. I like the idea that this weapon maybe allows a character to cast a spell from it. No matter what class they are, as long as they can wield the sword, like the class allows them to wield the sword, they can cast a spell. Ugh. I'm thinking of giving it like a version of the Oath ability where like 3 times a day you can basically give yourself advantage on an attack roll against orcs, like calling it like the Sword of Justice, because it's all about like getting vengeance on the orcs for what they did to the dwarfs. So that's kind of what I'm thinking right now. But I don't know. No, I feel I got a better idea. Very passive though, that's the only thing. Wielder may attempt to deal 1d6 additional damage if they succeed a DC 12 check. That's cool. I like that because obviously there's a bonus when you fight against orcs, so it is obviously a weapon that is kind of situational. As a DM, I don't really like my players only using certain weapons and never really like switching out what they use. So, I like creating situational weapons and situational gear, weapons that could be useful against certain types of enemies, because then they can kind of build up like caches of weapons, they can have different things that they use based on the adventure or the situation that they're in. It kind of reminds me of like playing golf, like, you know, switching club depending on like the situation. And because of like the fact that you have to carry each item and you only have so many gear slots, you know, players can't carry around 6 or 7 swords. So they would have to leave behind weapons at like a safe place and then bring certain weapons to certain adventures. And I just kind of like that. Yeah, so Rex, one thing I dislike in modern gaming is milestone experience. I used to do it, and I still do it for my 5e group, but I really don't like it anymore because I just feel like it's so arbitrary, and it's really up to the DM just to determine when players level up, and I think it should really be more up to the players when they level up. I think the players should be able to direct their story, and if they wanna get to the next level, they should do things in order to make that happen. You know, and if you're playing in a game where killing monsters gives you experience, milestone is really boring. Like, it's up to the DM to determine whether what you did was good enough. Like, that's what it comes down to, and it just doesn't sound very fun to me. What I like is DMs who give experience not just for killing monsters, but like by being creative, by role-playing, by coming up with creative solutions to difficult problems. Like, those are the kind of DMs I like, and I like the idea of being able to reward a player like for being really creative and completing like a side quest or something. Like, I can give one player 5 experience points. Shadowdark, the cool thing about Shadowdark is that players don't level up at the same speed. They level up at different speeds based on things they find and what they roll on their carousing rolls. So, I mean, why not? Why does everybody need to level up universally? Do you feel bad for them that one person is at the front? I don't want to reward a player who doesn't turn up to my sessions, for example. Like, if one guy misses multiple weeks, I don't think he should be the same level as my other players. If I've got one guy or 2 people who are coming every single week and are really consistent in my games, I want them to have more experience than everybody else. I want them to be a higher level. You know? And I want to play systems where the difference between levels isn't that significant. But it's significant enough that they feel rewarded for investing in my game. There's a couple of good reasons why I'd like experience points over milestones. And those are them. If I've got a guy who only turns up to 2 sessions a month rather than 4, you know, he shouldn't be the same level as everybody else. See, I don't want to punish players who are always here, and I don't feel like, unless you're playing 5e, that's really the only system I can think of. Maybe Pathfinder 2. If you're playing one of these modern systems where it's vertical progression, like characters at level 3 are so much more powerful than level 1, then fair enough, right? Fair enough. But like Shadowdark, the difference between a level 1 and level 3 character isn't really that much. It's a bit more health and an extra talent. You know, it's not that big of a deal. If you're a spellcaster, you have a couple more spells, right? Not that much of a difference. You can still die. So it's probably a lot easier to use an XP system in those kind of games. Would I do it in 5e? Probably not. But I have actually run adventures where I've had a group of level 2s and a level 3 and a level 4. And you know what's funny? I was kind of concerned beforehand that players would be upset about it, but nobody gave a shit. And people actually really enjoyed it. And it was just as dangerous for the level 2s as it was for the level 4s. So that was 5e, by the way. You know, people have good reasons to not show up, right, sometimes. Like, oh, I've got work, I've got to go to a funeral or something, right? Fair enough. But it's still, to me, and this might sound a bit mean, the fact of the matter is, they're missing a session. They're missing an opportunity to gain experience, to adventure, to develop their characters. And I want the players who attend to actually get something from the session, and I still want them to be able to be rewarded for their continued involvement. So I'm going to keep rewarding players who attend. And if you don't attend, then you'll fall behind. But just because you fall behind doesn't mean that you're not going to be useful. You're still going to be very useful, and you can still level up. You can still be effective and get magical weapons and kill monsters. Because in the systems that I play, it ain't that big of a deal. You know? so people can drop in and out and still have fun. Yeah, I don't find like people dropping in and out constantly fun, because that's how games die, right? That's why I like West Marches. I like West Marches a lot because what you do is you have like 10 or 12 people, and every week you just message them and say who wants to come, and like 6 or 7 people show up, 5 or 6, 7 people show up, and you run a game for them, and that's fun, you know. But running an actual campaign for like 4, 5, 6 of the same people every single week, and people constantly no-show or skip weeks and expect everything to remain the same experience, same progression, everything. I want to reward people who are consistent. I want to reward the dedicated players. People who actually make time for the game, who fit it into their schedules. I fuck with that. It's a name I haven't heard in a long time. Yeah, bro. I've definitely changed Galdrheim a lot. Good to see you. I haven't seen you in ages, dude. You need to come to one of my one-shots. I've been running Galdrheim recently. You still going? Yeah. We're doing this section now. Just for reference, this is Berserk. This is what it is right now. As you can see, still got the central area. I just think it's so iconic, this big open area. So we're keeping it the way it is. But I've made some huge changes to this zone here. I've got rid of all these rooms that were here. Got rid of the king's room or whatever. I'm going to have it be on a lower floor. Still got this room that was never really opened by you or any of your companions in any of the runs we did, but I've really changed this area as well. I've made it a lot more open, which is really fun. Yeah, it's looking a lot better. New players have joined and become semi-regular. Yeah, I feel like my IRL game needs like some new blood to come in soon, because people keep like missing sessions. Like I don't think we've actually had like a full group there for weeks. We've always got like 4 or 5 people playing, and sometimes it's just 4 or 3 people, and it's like, come on, man. I think we need to like try and advertise on Facebook or something. I mean, I'm not actually running those games. I'm just a player, but it's just I've not missed a game. I've not missed a single session since we started. And I just feel a bit deflated because I'm not really able to play half the time. And there are times where like we're not really actually doing anything. Like the DM says, now we're not going to do much this week because we're missing people. It's like, dude, that sucks. So we're not actually getting to play do the proper story and actually like kill monsters and have fun because some people aren't as consistent. (11A)? Where is there 11B? There is, okay. There is 11B. Okay. The goblin section is supposed to be all the way over here. So, yeah. I don't really know. I don't really know what I want to do with the goblins at the moment. (11A), (11B). I mean, I feel like these should be the kitchens. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There we are. Twelve A, 12B. Kitchen. Is that the good old Dwarven Motel? Could be, yeah. You guys never really did anything in this area, but this is like the Orcish base. This is where they're all located. And I remember you guys got close to actually going in here at one point, but then a random encounter occurred, and it was the gelatinous cube. The gelatinous cube like was in this area, and the orcs all shat themselves and like hid in their houses and shut the doors, and the gelatinous cube just kind of came through and went to this door, didn't it, and just started chasing you guys instead. Yeah, I think the idea for, like, if I was to run an IRL game, I think I'd want to run a West Marches. I think I'd probably do, like, a, like, Caves of Chaos or something. You know, just keep it simple. Like, run to keep on the Borderlands. What's another adventure? I mean, I think, the Veiled Society could be quite cool. Just doing, like, a city adventure. Having there be like random quests and stuff. That was an incredibly fun session. I'm pretty sure that was a session where like you guys figured out that the gelatinous cube had like a legendary sword in it, and you had to like you came up with a way to try and get it, and you almost died trying to get it, but you managed to get it, and it was a Vorpal sword. And I've decided that I'm gonna have the gelatinous cube in the new version. And he is still going to have that Vorpal sword in him. So, the Vorpal sword, like, Vorpal swords are really powerful, right? In 5e, you're unlikely to give it to a player, right? Unless you're just fucking crazy, right? Because 5e characters are already so fucking strong. Giving them a Vorpal sword is fucking cracked, right? But in Shadowdark, Shadowdark characters aren't very strong, right? Giving them a Vorpal sword, it's going to make them a lot more powerful. It's going to make their crits just amazing, right? Whenever they crit, everybody's going to cheer, and the monster that's being attacked is going to die, right? So really cool to crit in Shadowdark with the Vorpal sword. But the characters aren't going to... You don't have a lot of health. They don't have a lot of safety nets. That character can still die quite easily if he makes mistakes. And let me tell you this. If a fucking fighter has a Vorpal sword, I'm pretty sure they're going to be more confident than they're supposed to be. They're going to be a lot more confident fighting monsters. They're going to think they can probably take on bigger challenges. And they are going to slip up. And they are going to fucking die. And when they do die, the monster is going to pick up the Vorpal sword. And then start cutting off other players' heads. So, you know. And I don't really do like... It takes an hour to attune to a weapon or an item. I like the idea of you pick up the item. If you want to attune to it, you can, right? I find that a lot more interesting for players. I find it a lot more interesting for monsters. The only rule is that, like, you know, you can't just attune to an item that somebody else is currently attuned to, because it will break their attunement, right? Maybe something like that. But the idea of like a monster picking up a weapon from a fallen enemy and immediately attuning to it and just lopping off heads, yeah, that sounds fucking sick. I think achievement rules are there to, like, check players, not monsters. I'm toying with ways of granting risk-reward abilities for items, like a sword that turns you spectral for 1d4 rounds, or for 1d6 health or something. Yeah, I do like blood magic items, right? Where you have to, like, expend a resource to get something from it. Yeah, that's cool. I fuck with that. Reminds me of, like, I used to play a lot of Hearthstone. I used to play a lot of Gul'dan. And he has, like, an ability called Life Tap, where he gains a card, but he has to give two hit points, basically. And I fucking love just, like, life tapping and then, like, getting, like, cards out that can heal me. So I'd life tap myself and then fucking heal myself and then fucking life tap and just do it like every fucking round, and it was really infuriating for people to deal with when I used to play. But obviously, like, that's a bit of a cheese build if you were to do that in, like, a campaign, right, in a D&D game or something. You know, the idea in Shadowdark is if you had a weapon or an item that did something like that, you could play like a priest, right? Just like use the ability next turn, use your action to heal yourself. Oh shit, I failed my healing spell. I'm fucked. Yeah. Yeah, that like the idea of like expending stamina, health, I mean just weakening yourself in general. That sounds really cool. I like the idea of also weakening your allies or weakening monsters. That sounds pretty sick. I did a Shadowdark one shot. It wasn't last week, it was the week before. The wizard, the light went out during like a run, and the wizard tried to cast a light cantrip on themselves. Oh no, it wasn't light cantrip. They were getting ready to go into a room where they thought there was monsters. So the wizard tried to cast mage armor on themselves, rolled a natural 1, rolled on the fumbles chart, that they blew themselves up with like I think it was like 2d6 damage or 1d6 damage or something, and they rolled like max, and they just fucking blew up. It was really, really good. They didn't outright die though. It was pretty close to outright death. But the party had to quickly scramble and try to stabilize them, heal them. It was just very funny, and oh man. The 14 is supposed to be the chief's throne room. That sounds really shit. I really like the idea that 11B is the chief's room, because it's kind of tucked out of the way, right? It's connected with the mead hall, right? Which could be seen as some sort of, you know how like in a keep you've got like the feasting hall, and sometimes in that hall there will be like a throne for the ruler, right? Sometimes there is, sometimes they have like a separate throne room, right? Depending on like the grandeur of the ruler. But just the idea that the throne room is next to the feasting space, I don't know, I really dig it. I really dig it. I think we're going to make the room a bit bigger. There we go. Maybe a bit wider too. We'll make it as wide as these rooms here. There you go. I think that looks a lot better. And maybe double doors. Maybe double doors. Double doors is a lot more fun, isn't it? Well, the thing is, originally, the chief's room was, like, over here. And when I was looking to do the new version, I kind of decided that I really didn't like that. I didn't like how close the chief's room was to the entryway of the dungeon, and I just felt like it was very easy for adventurers to come up here and kill him. And I don't see why the orc leader would be that stupid as to make himself, like, really vulnerable. So, especially considering that there's, like, a gelatinous cube moving around, and there's also a troll in the dungeon too. And The troll is the big monster. He's like the Scarlet Minotaur of this place. And all the monsters are afraid of the troll. Because the troll's got like 40 hit points. And every round that he hasn't been hit by fire, he regains health. And he regains a fair bit of health. I think it's like 2d6 health or something every round. If he runs away for like 6 rounds, he's back to full health again. So he can just do hit and run tactics on monsters until they die. He's fucking terrifying to fight against. So I like the idea of 11B being the Chief's Hall. Let's call it Chief's Hall. Is originally was once a place of dwarvish contest where wrestling, axe throwing, and other contests were played. It is now used by the orcs to host their chieftain. AX? God, Americans are so weird. Alright. Furs coat the floor. Priceless silks and war banners drape the walls. A large throne made of wood and ivory. I don't like the idea of it made of stone because it's obviously an orcish throne. So I like the idea of it's made of wood and bone. It's like it's got skulls forged into it. You know, think of like the Game of Thrones, like the Iron Throne, whatever, right? It was like swords. Like this is bones. This is the Bone Throne. I think we'll actually add the throne as an image, just so we have it like represented here. Oh, I prefer that one. That one looks like shit. Oh yeah. Cool. Got a throne. You know, we could probably put down some banners too, just to represent it. Getting a bit laggy now, unfortunately. It's probably not helping that I'm live streaming at the moment, but I did want to run Galdrheim today, but I didn't have enough players, unfortunately. I do unfortunately have to like set things up kind of last minute because I do run an actual Shadowdark campaign on Sundays now, and I only run one-shots if, you know, people cancel, basically. If I don't have enough players for a session, then I'll run a one-shot instead for the community. So I don't really find out until relatively late. Cool. Banners and everything. I imagine there's probably like a bed in here too, and a large bed. That could comfortably fit 4 humanoids in it. Is located to the right side of the throne. What else? Yeah, let's roll for some treasure. The chief has many trinkets and treasures which can be found. Let's roll some dice. Alright, so I think we're going to do bullet points for this because I think there's going to be a lot of stuff. There's warhammers in here. We'll put dwarvish warhammers. 42 is an obsidian statuette of Moradin. 15 GP. Oh shit, I rolled a 98. Oh, I really don't want to give them a bag of holding. Let's go with what 96 and 97 is, which is a +1 armor. It's the one magic item I'm never gonna give anybody. I just think it ruins the fun of the game. I like players carrying things. I like if I'm a player, I like carrying things and keeping track of things and deleting, dropping things and stuff like that. 81 is a golden boar idol with a ruby gripped in its mouth. 60 GP. It's like an apple or something. Like it's supposed to be like an apple. I like that a lot. It's very cool. 40 is a golden bowl. And a cracked handheld mirror as well. That's a lot of treasure. That's a lot of treasure. Alright, you know what? Let's create a magical item. I'm gonna roll some dice, see what comes up. Supposed to be armor. So let's roll. First things first, let's roll for the armor type. It's a 2d6. I rolled a 7, which is chainmail. Very good. Okay, so let's start off chainmail. The armor bonus is a 2d6 again, and I rolled a 9, which is a +2 bonus. That's really good. +2 bonus chainmail. That's really good chainmail. Armor feature, d20. Makes sense that it would be in this room as well. This is a very difficult location for the players to get to. They've got to kill orcs and force their way into this place. This armor has metal spikes. And it's got benefits. Let's do a d12 for the first benefit, or the main benefit. Wearer has a +4 bonus to their death timers. Cool. What's the curse? You take double damage from blunt slash bludgeoning weapons. Huh. What book are you using for this? I'm actually using the Shadowdark book. You can make magical items from it. Where it has a +4 bonus to their death timers, and you take double damage from blunt bludgeoning weapons. So you basically like it's maybe the metal spikes represent like a skeletal spine. It's like armor of the skeleton or something. The skeletons have vulnerability to bludgeoning damage in 5th edition. That's cool. Okay. Alright. Anyway. That's that all done. (12A) kitchen. Alright, we've been on for about 2.5 hours now. We've made pretty good progress. I feel like I've really filled in a lot of the rooms that I didn't have ideas for. We've created... I did really like the idea for this. The fact the dwarven bathhouse that's been turned into an orc brewery. They're just like dumping fruit into the pool and mixing it with like, I don't know, yeast and other things needed for the fermentation process. And they're like, they're basically making their own alcohol here. But it's really, really strong, and if I'm being, like, I think it's probably quite rancid if you're not an orc. You know, it's, the idea is if you drink from it, you have to succeed a con save, and if you fail, you become poisoned for the rest of the day. But if you succeed, then you become more confident and more brave, and you have advantage on checks relevant to that stuff. I made it. I left it very open, which I think I wish more DMs would do. Room 6, right? Characters drink from the pool. They must succeed a DC 15 con check or be poisoned until their next rest. If they succeed, they gain advantage on checks related to bravery and confidence for the remainder of the run. I think I'm gonna change it for the remainder of the run to for the until their next rest. Yeah, that sounds good. Let's add a little caveat to this. Alcohol taken from here spoils in 1d for days, after which it will not offer any positive benefits. So basically this stops the party from just like milking the fuck out of this and like taking a shit ton of alcohol back to town and using it for future adventures. Yeah. Although saying that, do I really want to punish creativity if the party go back to town and buy a bunch of flasks and come back here and just fill it all up with orc liquor? Should I really punish that? No, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe not. If characters drink at least half a litre from the pool, they must succeed a DC 15 check. Yeah, I don't like the idea of it just being a sip, right? It has to be a decent amount of it in order for there to be any kind of side effects. Yeah, I like that a lot, actually. If they succeed, they gain advantage on checks related to bravery and confidence until their next rest. And that, yeah, that means, fear. That means charisma checks too. So if they're role-playing with orcs, they're more brave now, they've got more confidence. I'd give them advantage because, they've got, like, liquid courage, right? And I think liquid courage is more about just then, making idiotic choices. I think there's some form of, like, brash heroism involved. Edmar, what's going on? Welcome. I like that. I like the communal rest rooms though. Benches line the sides of the room, all fitted with flaps that, when lifted, reveal a hole that goes deep into the earth. The hole is narrow, but creatures can squeeze down it. The hole leads to the lower floor. And I'm probably going to put in, like, brackets here, in parentheses, like sewage works or something. Like a place where all the waste goes, right? The waste system. The orcs have no idea what the purpose of this room is, as it was used by the dwarves before they came. So the dwarves don't understand that it's a shitter, that they can poo in it. They probably, like, dump stuff in it. They might even, like, think it's a place that they can, like, give blessings to their god or something. I don't know. Like, it's... You probably don't really understand it. Okay, so we've got the Traders Square. We've got the Smithy. We've got the food hall. We've not really done a lot with the food hall. So I'm going to state some information about it. So there's stone tables with chairs and stools. Let's put, like, long stone tables. Yeah. Weapons and various trophies are nailed to the walls. The smell of rotting food and sweat is thick in here. Thick here. Okay, cool. Chief's Hall, lots of treasure, as you can see. Now we've got the kitchen. Yeah, let's do a bullet point here. 1d4 orcs are located here at any given time. These orcs are non-combatant chefs. Who are unlikely to fight. These orcs are non-combatant chefs and will immediately roll a morale check if confronted. That's interesting, because if they succeed on their morale check, they actually might fight the party and use knives, rolling pins, stuff like that. It leads to an interesting situation. Food fights. Could just be one orc, could be 4 orcs. There's some variation there. Large fire pit with hot coals. Tools used for cooking hang from the walls alongside torture devices. That's cool. Exactly. Don't kill me. I just cook the babies. Exactly. I like the idea that this room doesn't actually have a door, and instead it's just kind of like an opening in the wall. Nice. Just like that. It's fine. Maybe this. Yeah, kitchen storage. Still has some of the original appliances. Incredibly dirty. Bloody. Animal droppings. Sharp knives. Let's do that as a bullet point. I think there needs to be a location where they keep like live prisoners that they want to eat. So I feel like that should be this location. Cool. Cool. Nice. That creates an interesting random encounter situation. Orc dormitory was previously used as a leather worker's shop by the dwarfs. Now the hides and leathers used by the artisans have been turned into sleeping bags and covers for the orcs to keep them warm. Nice. A couple of weapons can be found. 2 spears. A dagger. And 4 javelins can be found here. Very nice. I thought about it, right? And I think room 5 is probably gonna... I think we should trap it. I think the orcs would trap it. The northern doors are locked and trapped. Door trap. Okay, so obviously we want it to be something that's mundane. I don't think a pitfall really makes sense. I mean, the orcs could probably do it. But I'm thinking maybe just like... I've done it before. I don't know if I want to do it again. But I'm thinking like they just like cover the ground in caltrops. They just covered that direction in caltrops to make it like, if anything comes through there, they've got to like deal with all the caltrops. All these squares just covered in caltrops. I'm looking for another way of it, kind of going for it. What else could it be? Alright guys, I've been on now for almost 3 hours, and I need to actually feed my dogs and take care of a couple of things. So I'm gonna get out of here, but thank you very much for watching today. I do appreciate having you guys here. Hopefully I can actually test this dungeon out in the next couple of weeks and run a couple of sessions. If you guys want to be a part of that, just make sure you've joined my Discord. I usually post the sessions on Thursday or Friday. Good luck with your games. I'll have a new video out soon. I'm probably going to make a video on adventure zones and adventure locations. So hopefully you guys watch the video. It'll be good. Thank you, Neil. See you, mate. Bye, guys. Yeah, no worries. See you around. Peace.